Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Zoe from the Department of Education, and today what I'd like to do is to share my experience of allowing students to write their essays using generative AI. I'm calling it a pedagogy-driven experiential approach, and that's because it forms part of a module on teaching and learning with technology. So this is a module that's going to be part of our MA in Artificial Intelligence and Technology Enhanced Learning. And it's a module that's designed to help students link what they've learned on another module about theories of learning and development with the affordances of technology. Overall, the program's designed to be experiential, so guided by research that finds that teachers their experience of learning tends to have an enduring impact on what they do as teachers. There are experiential activities throughout the programme designed to support the students to develop their own practices as teachers. And one of those experiences that we want to give them on this particular module is that experience of writing an essay using AI. So the idea is there that through that experience, they'll understand what to advise students, but also understand what they might be advising teachers about how to set assignments as well. So those are the aims of the module. And throughout the module, they're introduced to topics like this. So you'll see that the main content is about theories of learning and linking those theories of learning with the affordances of technology. To support them with the production of the actual assignment, because writing a reflective essay tends to be new to these students, we also have explicit support with writing a reflective essay. So what does the assessment look like? So it used to be that students would do a 3,500 word argumentative assignment. But this last year, what I got them to do was just a 1,500 word essay on a similar title, and then to write a 2,000 word reflection on their use of generative AI to write that assignment. To support them with that, they were encouraged to keep a log of their prompts and some of the outputs they got as well, and what they did with those outputs. I should say I don't just focus on generative AI. They are also encouraged to use machine translation because these are international students, and that might be another use of generative AI that they might make. There are two formatives. The second of these is specifically designed to scaffold that summative assessment. So they complete a 500-word reflective essay focusing on their tutor's use of technology in their masters. And they all get feedback on that. Specifically to support them with this assignment, they're given some training in AI. So I introduce what AI is at a conceptual level, how it works, what its purposes are, why people are trying to create AI technologies, and then also provide some training in prompt engineering. This was kept this year very much to the minimum, so to the introduction of frameworks like this, because of anxieties among other tutors about the implications of training students in this for their other assignment. As well, in order to support them with the reflection, they were given training in reflection, so they're directed to the University of Edinburgh's Reflection Toolkit. But within all of this, specifically what I use is De Bono's thinking hat. The reason for using this is I use it in other modules where there is experiential work, and I particularly like the fact that it has room for the red hat. So that's often laying on your table your preconceptions, your feelings about a task. And I think this is really useful because it really orients students away from the literature on the topic towards their own experience of the activity. And so this reflection tool, effectively students practice using it throughout the module. So you can see that there are activities throughout the module where they're encouraged to put their different hats on. So to first of all describe, say, the technology that they've used, then think about their feelings, then what worked well, what could have worked better. You'll see here as well, the use of the De Bono framework is also quite helpful in terms of developing a line of argument. It guides through students through that. So what did we find? On the particular module last year, there were 21 master's students studying for a range of degrees in education and also language education. They were from a range of different countries. There were quite a few students in there, though from China. So we had diversity, but many students from China. They also had a variety of teaching experiences as well prior to joining the programme. I am planning to write it up as a piece of research. For that, just 6 of the students gave permission to use their assignments and also completed a survey. In what I present, I'm just going to present my own reflections on the experience and on those assignments. I haven't analysed the survey data yet. So what were the initial impressions? It felt like a really worthwhile experience. They seemed to be a strong set of assessments, which were genuinely interesting to read. If you look at the statistics here on their performance, the reflections seem to be stronger than the essays. And you'll see later that this seems to reflect a genuine interest in the actual task here. In terms of what worked well, reflecting my own kind of intuitions, my own motivation for using the De Bono framework, the Red Hat did seem to promote genuine reflection. So students who really used, and I've got a yellow hat here, but the Red Hat really helped them to orient towards their own experiences. So where they actually really put the Red Hat on and talked about their own experiences at that point in the essay, that seemed to lead to an assignment where they were integrating examples of their own experience throughout. Other sort of general things about the module are that generally I would tend to incorporate how to write an assignment into the module and just directing them towards thinking about the session outline and how that might be a model, and also some published papers that also seem to show through in their essays. In terms of weaknesses, one of the challenges was that colleagues were nervous about the impact of AI, but another was also coupled with that students were anxious given the university policies. So this is something that we generally see in the literature, is that students are actually quite anxious about this. I think in a HEPI survey, about 50% of students report that they're very anxious about the use of AI, given the policies, given the confusion around it. So even in an essay like this, where they're permitted to do so, they're expressing anxiety about it. They were also anxious about the less well-defined elements of the task. So, for example, the prompt log. I hadn't done this before. I couldn't give them examples. I had tried to generate parts of the essay myself, but I couldn't predict the various different ways in which they might prompt and in which they might generate a log. And so this was an area that they were quite anxious about. The other area, I think, weakness was that not all reflections were clearly related to their own experience. So this might be because they're not so experienced in writing reflective essays. And here is an example. So, if you look at this example, you might also think it could be kind of a difficulty in expression. So here the students explaining how they prompted AI in different ways. But actually, if you look at the prompt log, it seems that actually the AI led them. They put in the assignment title and then it led them to take this step-by-step approach. So that could be due to a number of different reasons. In terms of what actions can be taken, if I do this again, and indeed I'm planning to do this again next term, but to kind of elaborate the training that the students get, I will really emphasise the importance of the Red Hat and that section within the assignment, because it did seem to orientate them towards their own experience. In terms of the examples that I obviously have now, and there are some really good examples there, what I will be doing is drawing out some of the examples that show how you would kind of justify a reflection, how you can support it with your own examples, either making links to the log or citing it, and also how they might incorporate academic sources. The other thing that I'm planning to do is to actually kind of go deeper in the AI literacy training. So in addition to introducing what AI is and how it works at conceptual level, I'm planning to bring in metaphors for AI that might help raise their awareness of different features or different, some of the biases and things like that about AI. But also what I'd like to do is to get them to delve deeper. So one of the best assignments, they compared different tools in their assignment. What I'd like to do is to look at kind of the different elements involved in preparing an assignment, get them first of all to share how they're using it in relation, how they're using it and to kind of classify it. Then think about whether they can move from more AI-led to more human-led, but also to compare their projections with that of the tutor, that of the AI. So to provide a bit of context, I'll be pulling out the AI, sort of how literacy has changed as a result of technology, and that's going to be in another module. So how literacy has evolved from print literacy through different evolutions of technology, and then alongside it, have activities each week which will be focusing on different parts of preparing an assignment and exploring the outputs that students get. So those are the actions we'll take. In conclusion, essentially, it really was a really interesting experience for myself. And as you can see from the end of module feedback, students did genuinely appear interested in this task. So this was a task that they really seemed to feel that they wanted to do.
I like what you said at the end, where you were saying about, trying to develop this into a way to help develop students to get beyond typing a prompt and getting a response, because that's, well, as you noted, the essays aren't very good when you do that. But that's really difficult, isn't it? Like, how do you think that this gives an insight into how you can help to train students in that direction? Because I've had trouble in the past.
Yeah, so actually, I probably should have elaborated on how I arrived at the framework. So I've been looking for something that goes beyond Furs and Perkins's kind of scale, because I'm not sure that as you move, say, Furs and Perkins AI assessment scale, I think is very much based on Bloom, that moves from kind of searching for knowledge to evaluating. But if you think about some of the critiques of Bloom, you can evaluate, for example, which is a higher end of the scale, on a more or less surface level, engage more or less deeply. So I've tried to be kind of influenced by that. I'm thinking I was also influenced by an article that was talking about search strategies and how when you're searching the literature, that is something, again, you can do in a more or less sophisticated way. So you can just bung in the assignment title. You can break it down and you can find search terms. And so to start off by giving that illustration of, I guess, search literacy and how you can do that in more or less human-led ways, and then to kind of to use that to guide students. The other thing is thinking about evaluation and how with evaluation you can just regurgitate other people's evaluations, which would be like the kind of AI-led level. Two, you could maybe use a human in the loop level, where what you might do is you might take kind of an evaluation grid that's like used in systematic review to guide asking the tool questions and then use that to inform your assessment. Two, you perhaps writing an evaluation and getting it to provide feedback on that perhaps. It's something, that I've been pondering, and also what I'm hoping to do is to take this, analyse the students' essays, but also analyse some data that I've got from EAP tutors, so tutors who've been working with students who've reflected on the different ways in which they're aware that students are using this. So I can elaborate it with examples. I'm not sure I'll fill the whole grid, but that's kind of the starting point for those discussions.
Thank you. This is really good to sort of see an implementation of how to use, like, really full on just go ahead and use AI in their essay writing. So I was wondering about if you could say a little bit more about how the marks correlate the student engagement with the material in some ways. Like, so you've got like So you have students that are engaging with material, they're being assessed through the generative AI. And as long as that process still, the marks still reflect students' engagement with the material, and kind of it's not that all students end up getting higher marks because they're using AI, right? As long as the way in which you're assessing it is allowing you to distinguish between students that are engaging more and engaging less. So I guess I was just wondering if you could say what within the experience that you've had can help to understand that. Just for example, so you have these two essays. Are there correlations between the students' performance on the different essays?
So I should say that this is the whole cohort and this is a subsample, and then these are the two parts. I haven't looked whether there is a correlation. I think impressionistically, my memory serves me right, that there is. What I should probably point out is that the reflection is weighted more, because obviously this is written with the AI. So here they're instructed not to use AI, and it will be more challenging to do so because it's got to be grounded in their own examples. The reflection, they are instructed to include, so they include some discussion of what AI is, they include some discussion about policies as well. So it is assessing some similar things to the kind of knowledge that you'd expect in a general assignment as well. I don't know, have I answered the question?
So the essay, they're instructed to not use AI, is that correct?
So the essay, they can use AI. So they're given a traditional, it could be discuss the concept of digital native, or it could be evaluate a piece of software, or I'm trying to think what the other titles were. Some sort of discussion of how literacy in the 21st century. These are the kinds of topics that you normally have on the module. They only write a 1,500-word essay, and then in the reflection, that's all about their experience of writing that essay.
Okay. So just to follow up, it would be really helpful to sort of see of students that do, the average is maybe higher, which is something that we hear about as being potentially an issue, but more importantly is the distribution. Are the students that do really well in this also do really well in other modules, also do stuff like that? That would just be really helpful to know that this kind of approach preserves the variation among students.
Yeah,
right?
Certainly that's something to do for the exam board. I wouldn't have consent to be able to do that more broadly, but yeah, for our own purposes at the university, absolutely.
Do the marks reflect how good the students are at the material, or how good the students are at using AI?
I think if you look at the strongest essays, those students are both the students that have spent the time trying to understand what they can do with AI, as well as the students that would normally have understood the material or the concepts. Yeah, so I think it's similar. So the students that would normally master the content are the students that are mastering the AI. Does that answer the question?
I mean, part of what you're sort of arguing is that, isn't that like asking, are they any good at computer science or using the keyboard? It's kind of, it's, if we are entering the brave new world in which this becomes calculator style, then you can't extract the two, right?
Yeah, so reading and writing is part of the academic skill set that you use to produce the assignment.
Using AI, for example, we've got a lot of text to read, and there are ways you can just analyze text, evaluate text. The AI should help with, for example, summarizing text quicker. You can also command AI to evaluate this text. It should enhance their kind of reading skills, the AI, use of AI. But again, if you don't know what they're going to evaluate or analyze, if you just don't know how to use the AI, so you need to know in advance what you want to use AI for. And so I think when asking about these reflections, you can see the students, they have the knowledge what to ask AI in their assignments. So I think this should also help with their overall scores and everything. So it should be kind of enhancing their academic skills.
Yes, I think what you're saying is that if the students already have a knowledge of the topic and they have academic skills, then they will get more out of the AI. And yeah, that would be certainly what I was seeing in the stronger assignments. I think the other thing you were saying is that students can use this to help them better understand text. And certainly that's, so actually I've been talking to students recently about their experience on the module, and that's something they very much reflected on. It's also what EAP tutors have talked about, is this idea you can use it as a study buddy, but equally you need to be really conscious that those summaries are quite surface level. The evaluations will also be quite surface level.
But because we can instruct the AI to evaluate the text as well. But again, there are different interpretations. How do you evaluate the text?
Yeah, well, indeed, there are. So the evaluation will depend on the context and depend on what questions the student asks it. I mean, so I should be very clear that actually I start the module by talking about what AI is, particularly the idea of building thinking machines, because what I want to engender in them is an understanding that AI does not understand, that this isn't just about the co-occurrence of words, and that they do actually need to approach this in a critical manner.
I think this is an important piece of training as well. So this will be good to teach students to train in this kind of understanding how you could use AI just to help you rather than just being accused of plagiarism.
Absolutely. And so the EAP tutors, their main kind of feedback was that assessment is blocking the door, that we need to be coming to more agreement about what is and isn't permitted, which using something like this, a more elaborated framework, could help us come to more nuanced understanding of. Then we can really start thinking about how do we use this to support students.
It's interesting to hear that you said your colleagues were sort of, wary of this, presumably, worried that you're inadvertently training like a level plagiarism ninjas. I wondered if maybe the opposite happened, and students who were, using it, finding its limitations, reflecting on it, maybe they were put off it. And I know you haven't analysed the survey, but anecdotally, do you have a sense of whether your cohort came out of it more enthused about the possibilities or like put off?
Yeah, so I should say I actually wanted to do this the year before and was told I couldn't for those reasons of the impact on other modules. That year, students were very much using AI in the class. They were literally, all the screens had got translated into another language, everything on their phones. I prepared to go into the classroom and set out rules. Basically, the idea that you were offloading, cognitive loads, tool to tool. And if you're going to develop your English, because a lot of them are TESOL students, then not to use AI. I was shocked to come into a classroom this last year, and actually they were already much more critical of AI than previously. And then, through the assignment, that does kind of raise their awareness more. I think there are many more activities that could be built in to raise their awareness. Things like, I think, image generation is particularly useful because that can help. It's much more difficult for someone who hasn't got kind of the acquired knowledge that we have to evaluate a text generated by AI. But if you can use simple tasks to kind of illustrate that it does not understand, that can be a gateway into them kind of having a more critical approach, I think.
It's a real chicken and egg. And there was a research paper that came out a few weeks ago, and it said the greater people's critical ability and use of AI, the less they trust it and the less they use it. And it's probably the first technology of this kind where that has happened, where people have been resistant to electricity and flight, but eventually, gone on holidays all around the world. So there's a weird. The more critical ability you develop, the less.
So if I can take that from a personal perspective, so I was very, very critical, and I wouldn't use it to, think, why on earth are they using this to write the assignment? And that's obviously because I come from a different position of valuing reading the articles, of the experience of critically evaluating them. Now, though, I'm increasingly using AI. but in a human-led way.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've got a script from a marketing talk, I bung it in and say, make me a magazine article or something like that. So, but it's using my text and my ideas as a starting point to regenerate those words, often in a different genre, is
And it's
particularly what
exactly
I'm
that
using.
skill that this is trying to teach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the weighting in the final marks, the essay versus reflection?
Yeah, so the essay was 40% and the reflection was 60%.